Hello and welcome everybody to the final round of the 2019 Lee Stoddard Dolphin Open. We are joining the top foursome as they are playing the front nine here. They're just about to finish up hole number 5, which is the fisheye here on the course. My name's Pat Sheridan. I'll be your commentator for the next 13 holes. I'm also one of the players in this final foursome, so I'll provide a little bit of insight as we go along here. As we're watching them wrap this up, the 4 players who are in the top foursome are Justin Seymour from Connecticut. He's in first place. Myself, I'm also from Connecticut and in first place. Josh Tiberio is currently sitting in third place, and you see him putting hole 5 right now. He's from Rhode Island. And Elmer Lawson from Pennsylvania is currently in fourth place. 3 of the 4, Justin being the lone exception, are past winners of this tournament. So it's a pretty high-powered final foursome that we've got going here on Sunday, September 8th, 2019. So we're moving on now to hole number 6 as we see the scorecard through 5, and we're putting up the scores of where they sit as we're playing the 10th round of the weekend. So this is quite a long tournament. After a couple of years of being 8 and 6 rounds, we've gone back to 10 rounds over 2 days. We see Justin here about to tee off on hole 6, which is the lobster traps hole. It marks kind of the far right corner of the course. You can see a little bit the lighthouse that marks the course from the road in the background here. Justin's sitting currently on 2 aces from hole 4 and 5, and we watch here, and well, that's 3 aces in a row. So a hat trick for Justin as he finishes up hole 6, which the stretch of holes 4, 5, 6, 7 are the most aceable on the course, and really where you need to make up a lot of strokes in any of these tournaments. You're looking to try to finish that front 9 under 18 to set yourself up for a good 9 going back out, as we see myself line up for the putt here. Really, every hole on this course is aceable, and in a tournament, every hole was actually aced during this year's tournament, some of them more than once. As you see me give a good run on hole 6 here, just missing the ace. So far I have a tap-in tool too. The course par is kind of high at 56, but from a tournament perspective, we look at course par being a 36. So every hole shooting a 2, so when we talk aces or bogeys, it's always in relationship to that 2 here. So mostly, you want to try to keep it at 36 or under. As we go here, these top 4 competitors are all looking at average scores through 9 rounds of under 36 holes, as we watch Elmer get an unlucky lip out and kick the ball off to the side on hole 6 here. So he'll line up his second shot. And that's what you're dealing with here, the Dolphin Minigolf. For anybody who's not familiar, Dolphin Minigolf has been in existence for 29 years. It's in Boothbay, Maine, which is right next to Boothbay Harbor, Maine, about an hour and a half to the northeast of Portland, so not too far up the Maine coastline. Very picturesque in September, when this tournament is always held, the weekend after Labor Day. We see Josh now taking his tee shot, or lining up his tee shot on hole number 6. All the players currently trying to chase down Justin, who is slowly starting to pull away in first place here. But the race really for second place is quite tight. It's not many strokes separate myself and Josh and Elmer. As we see the scores here, Justin's got 5 in the books on myself going into first place, sitting at a 323 after the 7 holes. So with everybody shooting 2s on Justin having the ace on the lobster trap, everyone else shooting 2s, it's Justin with the honors going into hole number 7, which is called the anchor, because it looks like an anchor. This hole used to be extremely aceable in past tournaments. If you'd played 10 rounds, it was very likely you'd ace it about 50% of the time. It seems to have dropped a little bit as Justin gives it a run right past the edge of the cup. You see it's usually a multiple banker. You're looking to bank off that little square kind of in the middle of the screen. and then again by where Justin's left foot currently was, either into the cup or try to play it again off one of the walls that form the tip of the anchor there. So even if you don't get the ace and you're hitting it on your regular line, it's a pretty easy deuce putt for the most part, tap in. Even if you kind of get a bad bounce, you see that one. For my own shot, caught a little bit of a straight shot back against the two walls. You don't see that too often, but it was a simple tap in for two myself as well. And we'll get to see Elmer line up his shot here as well as we go into the closing holes of the front nine. We talked a little bit about the ease of the course, and the holes have changed a little bit over the years in terms of playability. Some of it is due to carpet changes and things like that. Others can just be worn areas of bricks. So we get to the next hole, we'll talk about that a little bit further when we look at the Fisherman House, which is really gone from something that was great for players to something that's stymied them a little bit over the years. As Elmer also has a tap into putt, not too much different than the one I had myself. And finishing up the foursome here, we'll watch as Josh takes his shot on this hole. And his tee shot gives it 2 runs at the hole, kind of a similar position that Elmer was in, a couple inches closer to the hole. This should be an easy tap in for 2. Now we'll take a look at the scores again. Justin sitting 325, myself 330, Josh 3 back of him, and Elmer 1 back of him. So the race for the bronze spot is also fairly close as well. So returning to our discussion about this particular hole, this used to be a very easy hole, kind of lined it up in the middle, gave it just the slightest of taps in the right speed. You'd go through and ace it a fairly high percentage of time. It had started to change probably about 3 or 4 years ago as the carpets changed. It had always been the case if you hit it too fast, you'd probably run off the line. Now it's the line and speed have been very, very touchy. So the clunk as you hit the Fisherman House has become something that has shown up a lot more in current years than it has in past. And we watch Justin, who keeps his streak on fire and gets the ace here at Fisherman House. That's 4 of the past 5 holes he's aced. He has kind of a different line. He starts way on the left of the tee pad, kind of angles it towards the right inside of the house, and the way the carpet breaks, that just brought him right down and through. But for a lot of players, we have seen in tournaments that it has become tough. You can save a 2 if you get a decent bounce off the house up there. Usually you can either put it back straight through, or you can do kind of a double bounce and it kills it enough to go on through. As we watch me take my shot, I'm also through, but ooh, too fast as it hits the cup, kicks you out to the side there. These putts are not easy from the edges. It's a little bit better position playing here. What you really don't want to get is that kick backwards towards the house. It makes for a very difficult position to stand in to putt. So you'd much rather, if you're going to get a lip out or a kick out, be in a position like I am, as you watch me follow through and get the 2 there as well. Elmer will tee it up next. So it's a great thing about this tournament in a way, is watching the top players kind of adjust to the holes as we revisit them each year and see how they play a little bit differently each time around. Myself and Elmer, and I think we'll see when Josh gets up here, takes a little bit more traditional path to the hole, similar to the way we used to play it beforehand. Really just hoping to guide it through the house when you get that tee shot. So success is getting it through. Elmer, very similar to mine, except he got kicked out the other way. Nice bounce off the side wall there. That leaves him for a pretty easy deuce putt to finish up this hole. And then we'll see how Josh chooses to attack this hole as the last player in the foursome. Josh's putt is away. He also gets through. A little bit different lip out than Elmer, but pretty much the same position that Elmer found himself in. So you can see, why these players are probably sitting in the top 4 of the tournament, which was a field of 20 this year with some very competitive players. So the scores change a little as Justin picks up 1 more stroke in the lead, so he's now 6 up as we play the 9th hole. So as I was saying, the top 4 being where they are, as they all got cleanly through the house and got a 2, so no bogeys on that hole from our competitors. Hole number 9, you can see, is the dolphin-shaped hole, one of the most unique holes, not only on the course, but really in all mini golf. You can see the eye of the dolphin is really the cup here. There's a few different ways that players try to play this hole in terms of bounces and rolls, but for the most part, you're teeing off into a space that's about 8 inches away from where you're setting your ball up. So in the tail of the dolphin, you're really just teeing it up, striking it well against the tail to get the angle and roll towards the cup. This one, the carpet has definitely changed over the years. It's worn a little bit thinner, so some of the shots where the ball might track more directly towards the hole, we've seen gone off a little bit. So there's been some different strategies in terms of banking shots or whatnot, but for the most part, you're really just trying to get it down there. For a nice deuce putts like that, you're really trying to avoid any sort of overhit or underhit, because it's really possible to put that ball as it rolls out to catch kind of the front of the fins. As you can see, those bricks stick out, and once that happens, you have really no idea of where that might be going. So as we watch myself, I'm gonna feather it in a little too far. This is one of the holes on the course that has, probably right around where my putter is right now, a black dot. So mostly in this tournament, it's a rule that you can move it 6 inches from the wall, which is really the long side of the scorecard. If you open up the scorecard and place that up, if you get stuck in the dolphin's nose there, you really can't do 6 inches from each wall. So long ago, the past course owner, who sadly passed away in 2018, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on, basically just put some dots of, this is where you're going to put the ball if you're stuck in here. Gives you a good putt. Not super advantageous, so just make sure everybody's in the right place. And and look at the spin on that ball. Elmer, a perfect line. That's the way we often saw aces in the past. It was a little bit fast, and if you couldn't tell from the video, that thing popped up and spun like a top right next to the hole without moving. A little bit of breeze that might have dropped, and so Elmer robbed a little bit of the ace, but a nice show of what's possible here as Josh lines up and takes his turn. His ball, very close to that edge, and the couple bounce. And this is another one as we watch Josh actually try to blow on the ball a little bit. It may be hard to tell from this angle, but incredibly difficult to see how that ball didn't drop either, just sitting right on the cup. So we revisit the scores here after 9 holes in the final round. It's still Justin who's got a 6-stroke lead. As we look, he shot a 15. Myself, I shot a 17, and then Elmer and Josh both shot 18. So you'd like to be in that 15, 16, 17 range coming off a 9 here, but staying at 18 in par is pretty good. Josh did it with a birdie and a bogey. Elmer did it with all 2s. So fairly competitive. Myself, it was one birdie, no bogeys, and for Justin, it was 1 bogey on hole 3, and then he followed that up with 4 aces. So we take a look here at his hole 10. Here, the ship's wheel. This is one of the more complicated holes, although it does yield a lot of aces. You can see Justin did not get a very favorable angle on this. You're really coming in, starting at the right of the tee mat. You're trying to bank it off the left wall, scoot it by the ship wheel, get an angle off of the back bricks, and either straight in or a double bounce over there. You when you start to get to positions like where Justin is, the putts become rather difficult, especially to the far right as we look at the screen. It's not a place that you often are when practicing, and so something to think about if you do play this tournament is that probably is one of the very few places on this course that could use a little bit of douche chart mapping. Most of these holes are short and ace, or you're left pretty close to it, or are very easy to figure out. So unlike some other major tournaments, and whew, I'm gonna interrupt myself to watch myself do absolutely terrible on this hole. Got hung up a little bit on the bounce, hit the ship wheel. Luckily, I got all the way down, so at least I should have a decent shot. But this is what I was talking about earlier. Not a position you want to end up in. I personally don't even know if I've ever taken a putt from this position before I've lined this up. Usually, my screw ups is I tend to be on the fast side, so it's either back up towards the hill or in the opposite corner because I've run it back. And you know, the lack of experience shows here as I blow it past the hole, and I'm going to take a bogey here. So dropping another stroke to Justin as we get through, or working our way through the 10th hole here. So, you know, talking about that double bounce, this is, you know, a good camera shot here that should show some of that. The ship's wheel, you know, really can come into play even with the right angle, because there's very little room, although for the most part players are not really timing the wheel. You're more just going for the angle. So we can see Elmer had an extremely good run there, one of those multiple bounces down at the end. As we watch him tap in, going back to the discussion a little bit about, you know, charting and stuff, and in a lot of major mini golf tournaments, you spend a lot of time charting, especially your two putts, because, you know, some of the holes that are much longer, your tee shot, you may be 4 or 5 feet away, nothing you can really do about that, and those get to be tricky putts. But here, for the most part, there's not really a need for that. Just a couple holes. 17's one of them as well, where especially if you get hung up a little bit, you got to run at the hole. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. And now that is picture perfect from Josh there of how to play and ace this hole with the double bank. And that's going to shorten up the lead there that I have on second place by 1 stroke. So that was a 2-stroke swing very quickly as I got the bogey. Josh got the ace. That's 2 strokes on 1 hole. So the race tightening up a little bit, and that's going to give Josh honors as we go into the bridge. This is a deceptively straightforward hole. Basically put it straight through the bridge. The problem is the bridge is ever so slightly offset. So it can play a little bit of tricks on you as you're lining it up, and we have seen time and time again people miss the bricks and not make it down the bridge. And the preferred plays is kind of what Josh did here, and that you really, a lot of your aces are going to come from the back wall, so you're trying to put a little bit of pep into it, also because that's going to give you the best kick off of that angled wall as you come through the bridge. Soft hits tend to stick to the wall a little bit, so you're running that risk of, I've got to hit it hard. The harder you hit it, you're kind of looking at having a higher chance of being a little bit offline, because you're choosing speed over control in a lot of instances. As we watch Justin give a pretty good front door chance there and run it, and this is kind of the peril of potentially hitting it too soft if you don't get that rebound. Those putts from the corners can be slightly tricky. Not so much that corner, but at the opposite corner from where Justin is standing, it's got a little bit of break that's tripped up players before. So there's some finesse that goes into this hole, which would normally just seem like, well, put it through the bridge and see what happens. Is Justin takes the 2. It's going to be Elmer who's next up. I've dropped to the end by virtue of my bogey on hole 10, which I like that hole in the opening 7 rounds. The last 3 rounds of the tournament went bogey, 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 although in the earlier rounds I had a couple aces on there. So the course giveth and the course taketh away. I also, the year I won, managed to screw up that hole in the final round as well. So potentially it's a little bit of mind games between me and that shifts wheel at the end of the day. Um, as Elmer gets it through, great bounce. Oh, thought for sure he had the ace there. It was a little too hot coming through, but that's really what you like on this hole. Extremely nice. Tap into, move on. You're going for it. As we watch myself line up here, this is also one of the more popular photo shots of the course with the bridge, the ship's wheel, the lighthouse as it goes through the back there. I lined up, good kick. Oh, and very similar to Elmer. That was a nice run at it. I ended up on the other side, but a tap in two. And we're going to move on to hole 12, which is the fish hook. So we take a look at the scores here. This is similar to hole 8 in that I feel like in tournaments maybe 10, 12 years ago, people were acing this thing left and right. It's a multiple banker. You've got to get the right angles on it, but the ace percentage has seemed to be a little bit lower in current years. Don't have a ton of the stats to back that up, just a gut feeling based on everything I've seen. As Josh gives it a good run. This is another one that's got the dot in the little tip of the fish hook there, because a vast majority of players, if you're going to miss it, that's where you're going to end up anyways. Because not a lot of people tend to leave this too short of the hole, since you've really got to whip it around. So we'll watch Justin line up here. Revisiting a little bit, this was the first year that we've held the tournament without the course owner Lee Stoddard, who passed away in November of 2018, just a couple of years or a couple months after the last tournament that we ran. His widow Nancy, along with some help of family and friends, have been keeping the course going. She very much wanted to do a tournament this year, and several players chipped in terms of helping to organize what we wanted to do. She wanted to return it to the major 10 rounds that we're doing. A lot of the money that we're raising through fees are going to the Lee Stoddard Memorial Scholarship to help somebody go to a vocational school. As we watch Elmer here, who got a really good bounce, and talking about lack of aces, but here Elmer picks one up. So very nice shot by him to get the ace. So in the past, this tournament has always supported charity. It's always raised money for the Shriners. It's raised over $100,000 in the 25 previous years that the tournament's been run. This is the 26th year of the tournament. As we watch myself go for the ace here. Nope, not a good bounce, and I will tap that in for 2 here. We'll move to hole 13. So good to see. If we get through a couple shots here in 13, we'll revisit some of the thoughts about the tournament and the course. Hole 13 is a double-decker hole. It's called Squirrel Island, named after one of the islands in the Boothbay Harbor area. It's fairly simple. Go through the center hole up on top, and it is a near guarantee hole in one dot and bottom. I remember Lee telling me one time that is about a 1 in 1,000 chance that it won't go in once it goes in the top hole and comes out the bottom section. He's designed it in such a way so that it always does that. The cup down the below is also a little bit bigger to help facilitate that. As we watch Elmer, beautiful shot. Just hit that top hole, and it will go all the way down and in. There's 2 holes on the left and the right up top that kick you out down below where you will not have an ace shot. Despite its straightforwardness, it actually can be a very difficult hole. That putt towards the center hole has some breaks. As you can see, these guys are generally starting from the left of the tee mat as Josh gives it a run and not quite. And you can see he kind of tails it off, and it's difficult because you've got to have the speed in the line correctly. Even if it's on cup speed and your line's a little bit off, it generally takes off to the back of one of those holes. You really can't blow it by the hole and have it come back. You can also easily leave it short, which is probably the best option, as we saw Josh did, because then you just tap it into the center hole and it'll go down, and it's a pretty easy two versus trying to hit the shots either to the left or the right, which when we see a view of down there, you'll see they kind of end up in the back corner or the front corners, and can be long and tricky putts as well. But this one, especially as the weather conditions change, as we watch Justin make a run at it, and he's got it in too. So 2 of the 3 so far acing the hole, and again, just really showing some of the skill here for these top players as we talk about how difficult this hole can be. But if we think through a tournament like this where Saturday afternoon, and this, hold on, we'll hold that thought. So the local rule here is if you're in the pipe, sometimes it gets stuck in there because of debris or whatever, and acorns fall all the time, and whatever happens, the rule is you grab the leaf blower, blow the ball out, you can roll the ball and drop it back in, no penalty, and so the ball just goes out wherever it is and comes out. So it's you don't get penalized for the course not doing what the course isn't supposed to do. So that's why the leaf blower's there, and you'll see sometimes even the second time around doesn't work, as we do it again for Justin. So the change of conditions, the rain on Saturday where we moved to afternoon, this hole was much slower. It was a little bit, I think, frankly, in my opinion, easier to hit it because you could put a little bit more pace onto it versus the light touch. The other complicating factor is the hole in that front pipe kind of has an insert in it to make it really funnel the ball correctly to the hole. So too much speed, you really can't just bang it into the hole because it'll hit that insert and pop out and go to the side as well. So a very fine line that you're trying to walk here all the time. As I lined my shot also up from the left, and I tracked it very well, and this one is also going to drop. So 3 of the 4 top players acing it, with the lone deuce out of it being Josh, as you see, boom, right in. But even his was extremely close. So we've gotten through that. With those scores, we actually tied up Josh and Elmer for 3rd place as we go into the classic loop-de-loop on hole 14. So this one could be tricky. You got to get it through the loop. It's aceable with the right angles. Your second best thing that you really want is to have it come back off that wall and then into the loop and trickle out, or you can take your spacing of 6 inches out of the obstacle. That's the easiest. The further down it gets away from the loop, obviously the harder the putts get, both with angles and sometimes you may not have a clear shot to the hole, so you may have to do some interesting geometry to get it down there. But this is an example of just letting it, you get it to sit up in that pipe, you get 6 inches off the end of the loop, and that's a fairly straightforward putt. Also, the closer you get to where the camera sits right now, the putts have a tendency to break a little, so this is an area where you need to know what you're doing. The cup is also the most shallow cup on the course, so you really don't want to hit it too hard because you can bounce out of it, and that does not count as being in the hole. It's got to stay in the hole to count, and we've seen that happen in the tournament as well. So Justin lining up his shot here. Some other notes about the course: this was entirely built by Lee. He designed it. It's incredible in the way he thought through how all these holes are played. Even something like this is aceable. We've got a separate YouTube video that shows all of the holes being aced by myself, and actually I should probably do some editing because I've got some other video from this tournament where I actually do get the hole in one. So I should, on 15, which is coming up, and so I should probably replace my video there with an updated version that we could see over here with that hole in one. So looking at Justin, this is where the putts start getting tricky. That one's fairly straightforward, but a little bit closer to the camera, and it has a tendency to tail off to the right. So Justin obviously taking his time with this putt. It's got a comfortable lead, but there's some difficult holes still to remain on this course. You don't want to give up anything if you don't have to at this point in time, as I line up to take my shot at the loop. So again, Lee making all of these incredibly well designed. Some of the holes have multiple ways to ace it, so it's just figuring it out. It makes it so playable as a tournament course. It's also a great just to play with groups. There's plenty of space between the holes, as you can see, so it never really gets that backed up. And for people who haven't played it, oh god, 10, 12, 15 times like some of us have, just for tournaments, let alone the number of practice rounds and stuff, you're playing it blind or haven't played it in a while, and it actually can bite you pretty quickly. So it's not just easy for the sake of being easy. It's easy because people have figured it out. And here's a classic example of a place that is really not where you want to have your ball on this hole. No direct line for the two. Yes, clearly Josh is going to bank it, but experience from a past champion and play right there doesn't even really seem to worry about it. As we go in the hole 15, Justin's still up by 7. I've got 2 on Josh and Elmer. Hole 15 is Bob and Buoys. It is traditionally the hardest hole on the course. It's a one similar to ship's wheel in that you've got to get it through the bob and buoys. So there is a timing aspect there because you can't hit the buoys. And you've got to catch the corner of the hole, and then hopefully the other side of the bricks to go down. So we'll watch Elmer and putting a little body English into trying to get the ball to go down the hill here. Which does. So you can see you're trying to feather it past one. You got to hit the corner of a brick, line up with another brick, and hopefully get it down there for a 2. It has a lot of different ways that you can mess up. A lot of times, here we get a little bit better view of what we're talking about here. That kind of double bank, and so we'll see Justin try to take a run at it here. A lot of people try to push it too much and try to cut that angle, and you do that, you can easily do it, pretty much exactly what Justin did right there, and hit the stanchion that holds the bob and buoys. If you miss the corner, you can run long into the back. Your preferred screw up is probably where Justin is. Because at least then you've got a halfway decent shot at trying to bank a deuce out of it off of that back wall. So that's very makeable, especially if you've done it a lot and kind of understand which brick you're going to be going for and all that good stuff. We'll see if Justin can make it. Oh, yeah, very close. And he takes one of his few bad marks this round there. But as we watch myself line up, this hole. In the tournaments, the first person to get a hole in one on this will get $100. That's been the traditional mantra of this tournament. And that's not quite an ace run by myself, but that kind of double bounce is really what you're looking for. A little bit more pep, so that last bounce off the wall is a little bit rougher, or a little bit harder towards the hole is really how you ace it. I did ace it in one of the afternoon rounds on Saturday, so we knew a couple other people aced it. I was not the first, so I didn't get the $100. So like I said, everything on this course, extremely aceable. And Josh right there shows us exactly how to ace it as we were talking about it. So very nice run by him to put him both squarely back into third place, and starting to breathe down my neck a little bit again, cutting that lead down to just one stroke as we go into the final 3 holes here. So with Josh's ace on 15, he will have the honors going into hole 16, which is the whale. This is the second of the 2 extremely unique holes here at Dolphin. Again, very similarly unique just in general in all of mini golf. You don't see a lot of holes that are designed this way, both in terms of scope and scale, but also simply just the way the different carpet runs and everything. And so Josh takes his first shot here, coming up a little short. This is another tricky one, very aceable, but you've really got to feather it down to the right brick to get the right angle. Also, speed is a major consideration here. So it's quite easy to give it too fast a shot, and you're going to run it back into the nose of the whale, in which case you're also dealing with the predetermined dot, like some of the other holes. It's also easy to leave it a little bit short. So we watch Elmer take a run, and oh, another one for Elmer that just somehow slides right past the hole. So he will line up and tap in to there as well. So up next is myself. Gonna get this one lined up. There's actually another way to play this hole that does a little bit of a reverse bank shot off the inside wall there. Not a lot of players play that anymore. For the most part, everybody going for the longer touch shot that you've been seeing the players do here. And here is my run at it, and that one drops right into the hole. So that's another ace for myself on the back 9 here. So that's feeling pretty good. Not really much of an opportunity to close up against Justin here, but that gives me a little bit more breatheway over the 3rd and 4th place to try to hold on to the silver medal here at the 2019 running of the tournament. So we watch Justin line up his shot here. And just an example there of a little too slow and a little too off on the angle, but again, a tap in. So a nice hole all around by our leaders here. We now go into the 17th hole, which is simply called the left dog leg. So we take a look at the scores here. 3rd place still very tight, only different by 1 stroke. We picked up the action a little bit late. We missed the opposite version of this, which is called the right dog leg, where you're angling it. That first angle section goes off to the right instead of the left. You see here, I'm taking my first shot. Not a stellar run, at least at the line that could give me an ace, as my son Malcolm makes an appearance watching his dad trying to finish up the last couple holes here. But overall, that's not a terrible place to play from. If you go about 2 to 2.5 feet back from that same position, that's one of those places on this course that can get hairy. You can make the putt. It's got a line, but one place it's going to break to the left, one place it's going to break to the right. Depends on how far away you're off from the wall. So generally, you hope not to be here. Most folks play this one, as you can see I did, or how Josh is doing. It's kind of an angle to about the 5th or 6th brick, right off the tee mat. And Josh made a really good run at the front door ace. A lot of people from that position try to do kind of a backdoor ace here as well. From that same lineup, there's another line that plays it a little bit straighter off the tee, where you're hitting into the dog leg a little bit. And I think that's the line that you're going to see Elmer take here. Call that one a little bit lower percentage from an ace perspective, but probably has a higher percentage in terms of leaving you a safe second shot. I think the initial angle shot that some of us play has a little bit higher chance to have a mistake or a bad break, or you hit it too hard. You're not going to get the angle you want. So risk reward, like many of the shots on a mini golf course are, especially at this level. Know what plays you, know how you play in a particular tournament, what you need to do. As we watch Elmer knock it in for a 2 here. That's going to leave Justin lining up his shot here on the 17th hole, the penultimate hole of the 2019 Lee Stoddard Dolphin Open. Hole 179 out of 180 that have been played over the course of 2 days. So a bit of a marathon tournament here that we're about to wrap up shortly. So Justin takes his run, and actually a really good run at both the front door and the back door shot. A nice tap in too here, and we will move on to the final hole with our leaders once Justin cleans that up, and we'll take another look at the scores. Justin really should be free and clear at this point. Even if he took a 6, that would mean I would have to ace it to tie him. I'm 2 clear of Josh and Elmer, or 2 clear of Josh, 3 clear of Elmer. Josh has got 1 sitting on Elmer, so I'm going to line up. 18th hole is the longest hole here on the course. It's kind of a pure putting hole. You're really not trying to bounce it. There's a hill that's a little bit in the way of this shot, but you can see you're trying to run it kind of up the hill and then back down. I was extremely pleased with that. That's a nice tap in 2 to finish my round at 2 under, sitting 34. And here you can see the hill. So kind of a pure putting shot. Really comes down to speed and a bit angle. It is, I would say, almost somewhat easy to run it down into the ditch because you feel like you really got to need to hit the ball to get down to the hole because of the length of the hole. But by doing that, you can watch the ball really kind of take off as it gets around the corner sometimes. So here's Josh. You can see he probably had the right speed and was good in that he got that angle where it just kind of rolled the rail. If he had gotten a more up and down angle, it very likely would be into the ditch that you can see opposite him. If you are going to go down, that's probably the preferred versus going down behind where Josh is. And the only reason is you can give it a little bit more oomph to get back up the hill because you got that brick backboard that you can play it off of. Whereas when you're straight down behind the hole, you got to give it enough oomph to get up the hill. And if you're not careful, you can run it way back down that fairway and have an extremely long putt again. So Josh knocked his in for a 2. He also shot a 34, which is quote unquote 2 under our par, but 16 under the stated course par. So that will mean I, at the very least, will stay in front of Josh, and I will stay also in front of Elmer because even with my 2, if he were to ace it, which we can see here, he did not. He wouldn't have been able to catch up, and he won't catch up to Josh right now. So with Justin very clearly in the lead, and he'll be wrapping this up here, we stayed the same order that we went into the final round. So Justin is going to win the 2019 Lee Stoddard Dolphin Open. A first-time winner here is, Elmer just pushes it, and he'll tap it in for 3. He finishes with a 35, 1 under par. Myself, I will finish in 2nd place. Josh will finish in 3rd place. Elmer will finish in 4th place, and we'll take a look at the overall scores for the 10 rounds in a minute as Justin finishes up. So, a little bit by chance, he ended up being the last person due to his bogey on Bob and Buoys. But one of the nice things about this tournament anyways, especially when it's a clear-cut winner, is that we would have put him in the back of the pack anyways to get that triumphant finish to the hole as well. Here as we watch him Just hit it a little shy, but at this point, that's all that matters. He finishes very happy, very relieved. That's a good grind here. His final score was looking at a 347 to the 351, 353, 355. So everybody averaging under 36. 347 is obviously a score of 34.7 per round. So pretty good average. We'll take a look at the scorecards here, and that shows the 34, 34, 35. And Justin with that one shot was a little over par on the back nine, but that's it. Thank you everybody for watching, and we hope you come out for another Putting Penguin production.